Now this is a very popular IEM, and it is a flagship IEM, so it carries flagship price, which is at 535 US dollar internationally. And if you are based in Malaysia, you can get this Mega 5 EST from Red Ape Audio in Shopee for the price of 2,500 Malaysian ringgit. Let's just take a moment to appreciate the beauty of this Mega 5 EST. Pretty much simple, I would say, for flagship. And let's just start with the cable itself, this premium looking cable here. What you're gonna get is a leads silver plated OCC copper 24 gauge with 4.4 mm balance termination here, and it is designated as white whale. And as for the IEM itself, let's just have a closer look. Like I say, it is pretty much simple, no nonsense kind of design, and it is made entirely of hard resin. And at the front here, pretty much something like, very simple design. What you're gonna find inside is a collection of a hybrid IEM with 5 drivers. I think there's 1 dynamic driver, 2 balance amateur, and 2 electrostatic driver. And why do I say electrostatic? Because to my knowledge, real electrostatic like Shure KSE 1500 or my stack SRM, as you can see here, they actually needed at least 200 volt of DC power all the way to 590 V of power in order to make sound. But for the sake of this video, let's just call it magnetostatic. Let me just bring up some concern here, perhaps unique to my usage. As you can see here, this Mega 5 EST compared against the other competition in the market, which is like 2 examples that I like to bring up. FIO FA19 and also Hidis MP145, both very popular. You can clearly see that the FIO FA19 is definitely bigger and Hidis MP145 is the biggest. But if you look closely from that particular angle, you would notice that this Mega 5 EST kind of a bit more angular, kind of a bit more protruding with this particular section here. And why am I bringing this up? Because as you can see here, I was using this Mega 5 EST for gaming for up to almost 3 hours, and at the mark of over 1 hour, it was kind of a bit discomfort. I'll just simply put it like it wasn't like comfortable at all, because that particular protruding part, let me just show you again, highlighted in green here, right? It is kind of like pushing my ear, this ear part of my ear, which felt really kind of like, abrasive to the skin. Kind of like, I feel the pressure itself, so I wasn't able to wait beyond the mark of 3 hours. I have to take it out in order to kind of like, relieve the stress which was imparted to my ear. So let's just talk about the general tuning itself. It is something which I would consider as being close to being neutral, with some hint of boosting in the lower frequency and kind of a bit Harman-ish sort of tuning. So which means that there's a bit of suppression in the mid bass and a bit of focus on the sub bass. So when we talk about the general sound presentation itself, it reminds me a lot to another headphone which I really love, which is Sennheiser HD650. Yes, they are pretty much, similar in many ways, except that I do feel that Sennheiser HD650 kind of a bit warmer, and this is just slightly warmer. So in general, despite being highly analytical, detailed, really good with macro and micro detail, this Mega 5 EST is exceedingly smooth and musical. So there's proper balance of, element of technicality there, analytical prowess, without sacrificing the element of musicality. So what you can expect is something which is smooth. Again, the keyword here is smooth, airy, and then the way the transient flow itself, it is just simply harmonious. Despite having 5 drivers, 3 type of drivers there, with the lower frequency being handled by the dynamic driver and the mid-range being handled by the balanced amateur and the upper frequency by the magnetostatic driver, there's coherency. I am not hearing any kind of disconnect between different layer of sound frequency, the upper frequency, the mid-range, the lower frequency, all working harmoniously together. So you can expect cohesion. So the speed itself is pretty much impressive, I would say, despite having kind of a bit of smoothness there. It does not, impart any kind of sense of being congested or anything like that, despite subjected to highly complex composition, like for example, if you listen to Philharmonic Orchestra, Vivaldi, or even Beethoven, or even listen to very technical jazz, you're gonna hear all the layering and the separation being defined succinctly. And while doing that, it does not sound edgy, does not sound offensive at all. It picks up the macro detail well enough, and it also picks up the micro detail well enough. But I would just simply put that if you are a detail junkie, then perhaps you might find that some other competition like FA19 might be able to resolve even more. But the key element for this Mega 5 EST is not just being technical, it is just simply an all-rounder IEM which is highly versatile. You can listen to any type of music, be it technical jazz, be it rock, metal, be it electronic music, you name it, male, female vocal, all sounded correct. The reason I'm saying correct because the mid-range itself being handled by the balanced amateur, it sounded transparent enough to my ear with the kind of output which just very mild hint of warming there, very mild. And what you're gonna get in return is that something which is highly organic. So contralto sounds like contralto, soprano sounds like soprano, baritone sounds like baritone. The attack of the instrument is just simply crisp yet smooth edge, and so does the dispersal of the decay. And let's just quickly have a look at the upper frequency. Now we are going back to the magnetostatic. I must say that Hisenior did a real good job there, to a point that I did mention earlier, right, being airy. So what you're gonna get is something which extend really well into the upper frequency with the kind of micro detail which is just enough. It is not the kind of detail which is splashed into your face, but rather you're gonna hear it in such a way that it is smooth. It is like velvety smooth, in fact. So the overall theme for the upper frequency is highly resolved but smooth. And when it comes to the lower frequency, now this is kind of a bit mixed bag here, because traditionally I always prefer something which a bit more of focus on mid bass rather than sub bass. And this Hisenior Mega 5 EST being a Harman-ish kind of tuning, so you can expect the mid bass may appear sometime if you listen to something which require a lot of percussion or even rock metal, kind of a bit subdued, in order to make the sub bass appear a bit more. So if you love electronic music, then that is something which is very suitable. But I think for rock and metal, I may not use this Mega 5 EST for rock and metal. The suitability of this Mega 5 EST for other than music. I have been playing games quite a lot using this Mega 5 EST, and I did mention earlier the comfort factor. So taking that comfort factor aside, this thing is immersive, holographic, and wide sounding as well. So I was able to get the kind of pinpoint accuracy even when gaming, doing TPP or even FPS gaming. And the most important part is that it is immersive enough, and the keyword here is enough. It is immersive but not exactly the most stellar as compared to other competition in the market. For example, like FIO FA19 is definitely more crisp with the imaging itself, with the spatial projection, but it is definitely passable for gaming. When we talk about comparison and competition in the market nowadays, even at this price point, we have to admit one thing. It is super exceedingly competitive. We are seeing so many great sounding IEM, especially at this price point, flagship IEM. So where does this Mega 5 EST stands in the competition with the current competition in the market right now? Let me just quickly compare it with some of the IEM which I have reviewed recently. And first and foremost, I would like to bring up this IO Volare, which was super impressive. Just to put things into perspective, I did mention that this Mega 5 EST is similar sounding to Sennheiser HD 650, correct? So that IO Volare, if you have seen my review, I did mention that that Volare was akin to Sennheiser HD 600 here. So we are looking at two IEM which represent that kind of natural, smooth, analytical sound, except that I do feel that this Mega 5 EST kind of a bit warmer sounding as compared to that more transparent IO Volare, and both of them kind of a bit Harman-ish type of tuning, but at least I do feel that IO Volare offer a bit more of mid bass, while this Mega 5 EST a bit more of sub bass. So there's a bit of suppression in the mid bass for this particular unit. But in general, both of them are super musical and analytical. And also I can draw comparison with Tangim Origin, which is super popular as well, super impressive. And the way I look at it, again, pretty much similar to the comparison with Volare. Tangim Origin is a bit more transparent and also closer to neutral target. So even less coloration on that Tangim Origin, but it would also appear kind of a bit drier if compared to this Mega 5 EST. In fact, this Mega 5 EST is closer to the one which I have tested from my friend Ben, which is the Unique Melody Mesh Mark 1. But that Mark 1 is kind of a bit richer with the sound texture itself. So there's a bit of variation here. My point being is that, you know, at this level, there are some differences here and there, but don't expect the kind of differences which are like, you know, huge, you know, this kind of gap or anything like that. But we are talking about minute refinement here and there. So talking about that, let's just go down to the ranking system for Andy Revok, okay, for this Mega 5 EST. You can just simply click on the link below in the description and have a look at where does this Mega 5 EST stands in the whole ranking system. Very impressive at 71 out of 100, pretty much side by side with the likes of Tangim Origin or even within the same space with IO Volare. So I would say that if you are looking for something which is very well tuned, very well balanced, and then definitely musical and analytical at the same time, and exquisitely tender, smooth with the sound itself, this is the one to go for.